Chapter 10 Calorie Quality Factor 4 Efficiency. Last but far from least, a calorie is not a calorie when it comes to how efficiently your metabolism converts it into body fat. The more inefficient calories are at being stored as body fat, the better. Keeping the science of sane eating simple, fiber and protein are entirely inefficient. Explaining the inefficiency of fiber is easy. Fiber is not digested and therefore can never be stored as body fat. The body tries and tries to digest fiber, but then after burning a bunch of calories trying to break down and absorb fiber, it gives up and passes fiber through the digestive system. This also explains why fiber helps to keep us regular. Explaining the inefficiency of protein is a bit more involved, but quite interesting. To start with, let's talk about the calories we burn digesting food. It takes our body 5 to 10 times more energy to digest protein than it does to digest fat or carbohydrate. In fact, about 30% of calories we get from protein are burned in digesting it. But protein's inefficiency doesn't stop there. Even after we burn 30% of protein calories during initial digestion, protein cannot be directly stored as body fat. In contrast, a superhighway is busy shuttling glucose into our fat cells. The process of converting protein into glucose is called gluconeogenesis. Gluco, sugar, neo, new, genesis, creation, or the creation of new sugar. This process burns 33% of the remaining protein calories. Take the 70% of initial protein calories remaining after digestion and burn 33% of that 70% during gluconeogenesis, and we are left with a measly 47% of the original protein calories. What started off as, say, 300 calories of juicy protein is reduced to 140 calories of glucose in the bloodstream. Converting that newly formed glucose into body fat consumes 25% of the glucose calories. So when everything is said and done, only 35% of the initial calories we get from protein can possibly be stored as body fat. You heard that correctly. Over 2/3 of the calories from protein are burned converting protein into a compound which can be stored as body fat. If we follow the same digestion process for starch, we would find that 211 of the 300 starch calories can be stored as body fat. That means 70% of the calories from insane, low fiber, low protein, and low water starch can be stored as body fat. In other words, calories from starch are more than twice as efficient at becoming body fat as calories from protein. This is transformational nutrition knowledge, so let's reiterate by tracing protein through our digestive system and comparing that to starch going through our digestive system. We eat 300 calories of protein and we eat 300 calories of starch. 210 calories of protein remain after digestion. 282 calories of starch remain after it is digested. After the conversion into glucose, protein is reduced to 114 calories. Starch is already converted into glucose during digestion, so we're still at 282 calories. When the remaining 140 calories are to be stored as body fat, the conversion takes place and only 105.5 calories from protein remain. Contrast that with 211 calories still being available from starch. Simplifying this complex math, calories from starch are twice as efficient as being converted into body fat as calories from protein. Now, this research doesn't suggest you should eat 100% protein, but it is suggesting that you can eat more and burn more by eating more nutritious, protein and fiber packed food. And to keep things simple, the same techniques you use to increase satiety, decrease aggression, and increase nutrition are also used to decrease the efficiency of your calories. New heading: How body fat is created. With all this talk of calories being more or less efficient at being stored as body fat, let's quickly cover how body fat gets created. The process of creating new body fat is called annoying. Just kidding. It's called lipogenesis. Lipo equals fat, and genesis equals creation. And with genesis in mind, in the beginning, there was food, and food was classified by its dominant macronutrient: protein, fat, or carbohydrate. As soon as the body is fed protein, fats, or carbohydrate, it turns them into amino acids, fatty acids, or glucose, respectively. This first step is important because it provides another example of why a calorie is not a calorie. Once fat is converted into fatty acids, if there are more fatty acids around than we currently need, all of them are sent off to be stored as body fat. The glucose we get from carbohydrate does not work that way. Glucose cannot be stored as body fat without the hormone insulin. And then there are the extremely inefficient amino acids from protein. Amino acids must first be converted into glucose. Then, once they become glucose, they need insulin or they cannot be stored as body fat. Now, let's assume that the hormone insulin is making its rounds and we have excess glucose on its way to fat cells. At that point, glucose is converted into fatty acids, and we're one step away from new body fat. During the last step in the process, all those fatty acids combine with a glycerol molecule to form triglyceride, aka body fat. This is called esterification and is not possible without a substance called glycerol 3 phosphate. Why am I telling you about how our bodies create fat? Because once you understand the science, there are 3 useful takeaways. First, a calorie is clearly not a calorie, considering that protein is 5 calorie burning steps away from body fat, convert into amino acids, convert into glucose, meet up with insulin, transform to fatty acids, and hook up with glycerol 3 phosphate, while fat is only 2 calorie burning steps away, convert into fatty acids, and then hook up with glycerol 3 phosphate. 2. It's impossible to store glucose as body fat without enough insulin. The more aggressive a calorie is, the more insulin it triggers the pancreas to release. This can overwork the system and lead to cells becoming insulin resistant. Eventually, if too much insulin is triggered too often, the pancreas can wear out, resulting in type 2 diabetes. We'll cover this in much more detail later. That is one of the reasons we want to avoid aggressive calories. 3. No body fat gets stored without glycerol 3 phosphate. Where do we get the most glycerol 3 phosphate? From insane low water, low fiber, and low protein starches and sweets. Carbohydrates are not all bad. Non-starchy vegetables are carbohydrate, and they are the sanest foods in the world. But insane carbohydrates from starches and sweets fuel overeating, set point dysregulation, and body fat formation. Put this all together and it becomes clear why eating as many sane calories as you want will keep you at a healthy body weight long term, while eating less does not. When people eat less, their body believes they are still overeating since their metabolism slows down. Additionally, they still have plenty of insulin and glycerol 3 phosphate, thanks to the insane low quality starches and sweets they continue eating. Overeating plus insulin and glycerol 3 phosphate means new body fat. On the other hand, when you go sane, you avoid overeating thanks to high satiety. Calories are released into your bloodstream slowly and they trigger little insulin thanks to low aggression. Your body is flooded with abundant essential nutrients thanks to the high nutrition quality of your calories. Finally, you burn a bunch of calories during digestion thanks to low efficiency. Eating all this sane food makes you too full for insane starches and sweets. By avoiding starches and sweets, you do not have a surplus of calories to store, and you don't have enough insulin or glycerol 3 phosphate to fuel excess body fat formation. Free from the need or ability to store body fat, you eat more food and slim down. Before we dig deeper into the specific day-to-day details of eating more but saner, there is one more calorie myth we must free ourselves from. The myth that calories are everything, so moderation is all that matters. Sidebar: How to eat sane as a vegetarian. Christina's story. A sane lifestyle is compatible with plant-based, paleo, primal, low-carb, organic, local, vegetarian, kosher, halal, or virtually any other lifestyle. It's about eating satisfying, unaggressive, nutritious, and inefficient foods that are high in water, fiber, and protein. If you would like to add other criteria, that's no problem. For example, Christina is a vegetarian who went sane by dramatically increasing her intake of non-starchy vegetables, enjoying more plant-based protein, and savoring whole food fats such as nuts and seeds. How did sanitizing her vegetarian lifestyle work out for Christina? In her words, "I have plenty to eat. I'm not starving. On the contrary, I am well nourished and feel satisfied and feel great all the time. 3 months of eating like this has gotten me off my diabetes medication and reduced my HbA1c from 8.3 to 5.7, rendering me diabetes free. I also was on cholesterol medication, but after I sanitized my eating, my cholesterol went from 220 to 103, and I was taken off that medication as well. My husband, who is not a vegetarian, but humors me and eats what I eat inside the house and orders lean meats when we go out, has lost 32 pounds, resolved his sleep apnea, and stopped having migraines. We both stopped having heartburn, which for me was a daily and painful occurrence, no doubt sugar and starch related. And to top it off, I've lost 45 pounds in 3 months. Oh, and there's just one more thing. After 5 years of trying, I finally got pregnant. I can't tell you how excited my husband and I are. You better believe we'll be sane for life. Sanity isn't about you must do this and you can never do that. It's about using proven modern science instead of complex myths to live better, whatever your lifestyle.